Okay, we talked about water. Now we're going to talk about cooking. And the reason I'm going to spend so much time on cooking is that there's a lot of gear involved. And whenever there's gear involved, there's a million choices. There's a million different things you can do. There's a million different ways you can skin a cat. And everyone has their things they like and the things they don't. And there's a million companies that want to try to sell you a million things. So I'm going to just go over, again, this is everything I know. So I'm going to try to give you everything I know. First thing about cooking is there's no fires allowed above 10,000 feet in these mountains. And often you're going to be camping above 10,000 feet in these mountains. So you just plan on not having any fires. There are a couple places you can have fires low down, and at the campsite that you may stay at the trailhead, you can have a campfire. But it's a totally different set of utensils and gear that you would need to cook over a fire sometimes than if you cook over a stove or another way that we're going to talk about. So there's really no fires up there. When you are camped, you want to select a place to cook that's far away from your tent. It's required by the National Forest that you camp 100 feet from water, and you should also cook 100 feet from water, because no matter how careful you are, no matter how meticulous you are, you'll drop little crumbs of this, that, and the next thing, and animals will come and find that. And if your tent is right next to where you're cooking, they will also find you, and they may smell something on you, or they may smell you and want to investigate. So the safest thing to do is to cook 50 to 100 feet away from anywhere that you're sleeping. What you need depends on what you're cooking. So I'm going to talk about food and what I usually bring in a later segment, but a lot of people, when they go, when are you going to cook, right? For lunch, you're going to have salami, cheese, peanut butter, and jelly, something that usually doesn't require cooking. Maybe you'll want a hot cup of tea, and you'll get the stove out to make that, but usually in my experience, people cook in the morning and they cook at night. And even in the last couple trips I've been on, there have been mornings when I don't want to cook. I don't want to deal with it. I just want to eat a power bar and start walking. There's other mornings that are rainy or cold, and hot oatmeal and a hot cup of coffee. I don't drink coffee, but a hot cup of tea or a hot chocolate or something in the morning really goes a long way. And you're definitely going to want to cook. Well, not definitely. Again, I have a friend that did the John Muir Trail, 200 miles, or 200 and something miles. He did it in 8 days. It was quite a feat, but he didn't cook at all. Halfway through the trip, he sent his stove home, and he just ate cold food. So that's a way you can go. It is fun to cook, and like the gear is fun, and it's fun to have hot food at night. So I like cooking. I usually cook at night and in the morning. Although, like I said, I'm going to try cooking, maybe if I have 4 mornings on my next trip, I'll cook 2 of them and I'll eat cold food for 2 of them and see how that goes. So what you need to cook with depends on what you need to cook, right? So if you have dehydrated meals, like this from Backpacker's Pantry or Mountain House or something, this is a whole meal. All you do is add boiling water, seal up this bag, and you can eat right out of the bag. So then all you need to cook is a pot and hot water, right? So that's easy. The other thing I'm going to talk about when I get to the food segment is if you have a dehydrator. A dehydrator is just a thing that circulates hot air through trays of food and dehydrates them. You can make beef jerky, you can make dried foods of all kinds in terms of fruits, vegetables, meats, whatever. And I found that's really good for making backpacking meals. I mean, this is a great meal, but it has a very long list of ingredients. You don't really know what's in it. It's got a huge amount of sodium. So if you are a person who likes to cook, you can eat your own meals in the backcountry. Oftentimes, if it's a soup or a stewy meal, I make chili. I make like a great spaghetti meat sauce that I'll just make it just like I'm going to eat it at home, and then I dehydrate it. And then when I get to camp, all I have to do is add boiling water to it again, and it's ready to go. It's a great way to get enough protein, and my wife always would complain that we didn't eat enough vegetables and things. So I'll make a meat sauce with mushrooms and tomatoes and peppers and onions and garlic and just throw the whole kitchen sink at it. And then we just rehydrate it, and it's a really good hearty meal. So for things like that where you have dehydrated meals, all you need is boiling water. And a lot of people like these dehydrated meals, but they're expensive. If you're trying to save money, that's also going to be a factor. These are much more money than cooking yourself and bringing cheaper options. And then there's a thing called freezer bag cooking. And what people do is they bring Ziploc freezer bags because they're a little more durable. And then just like this, they will have made a dehydrated meal at home. They'll put it in the Ziploc bag. They'll boil water. They'll put the water in there. They'll seal it up. And then usually they have some sort of way of keeping it warm. So they'll have like a little cozy that they can slip the bag into. Or they'll have something like this, which is just a Tupperware with a little cozy made of, this is like duct reflective insulation material called Reflectex. You can buy it at the hardware store by the yard, I think. So you can make your own solution like this, whereas if I made a dehydrated meal, I could put it in here, put the boiling water in here, put the cap on, leave it for 10 minutes, and then it's ready to eat. So in all those cases, you only need boiling water. So how do you boil your water? Like I said, wood fires are out. There are some wood burning stove options, like made of titanium, and you can put wood in them and stuff. But again, wood fires are out at elevation, not because you're worried about burning down all the trees, because at over 10,000 feet, you're usually above tree line. There aren't a lot of trees. So if they allowed wood fires, people would just cut down trees and there would be no trees left. So, so usually what you need is a pot, fuel, and a stove to burn the fuel. So these three items. And first I'll talk about these canister stoves, then I will also talk about alcohol stoves and solid fuel. But this is what when I went to camp, it would be white gas. So you'd have a canister and then a pump leading to it, and it was finicky and it was a pain in the ass. These canisters are really nice, they're really convenient. You can get them almost anywhere, worldwide. They're all universal. And the negatives about these canisters is they're really not recyclable. So somewhere, just like there's a pile of 1 billion iPhones somewhere, or probably many piles. The same thing with these canisters. They're just sitting somewhere. They're not getting recycled. They're not getting reused, and that's a big argument for alcohol stoves, which I'll talk about in a second. But it's very easy. You have a stove that threads onto the top, and then the stove usually also has a built-in pot stand to the top of it, and then you put your pot on the top. This stove is by Snow Peak. I really like it. This is the titanium version of what they call their Giga Power Stove. Same thing that's written on these canisters. This stove, like I said, is titanium, so it's very lightweight, but it still weighs in at 3 ounces. And I'm not sure they sell the titanium version anymore. I think they only sell the steel version, so it's even more, 3.5, 4 ounces, something like that. So what you have is a stove and the pot and water in the pot, and it's just this, and you turn it on and you light it. I really like these mini Bic lighters. They come in packs of 3. You can get them at the grocery store or the gas station or whatever. They're really great. They're really tiny. They weigh nothing. I usually bring 2 in case I lose one. And here's the stove, and that's about full blast, and that's a really low simmer. One of the things I like about this stove is it does simmer really lowly. Some stove, it's like you get full or nothing. And this stove I really like because it does simmer. The other thing I like about it is it has a pretty wide pot space. So if I'm using a slow pot, if I'm using a bigger pot, it still works. And I often use this stove with a skillet as well. And it works with that because it's pretty stable and really nice. So let's talk about skillet. Let's talk about what you're going to use. This is a heavy item, right? I'm not bringing this on a backpacking trip unless I really need to. It's almost 10 ounces. Why would you really need to? If you're a fisherman, a full fish will fit in this skillet. It's not going to fit in a tiny skillet that comes with some of the pots, like something like this. Like this is the same idea, but obviously, unless you're catching 100 little trout, having a baby feast, this isn't going to cut it, right? The other thing to think about is material. This is anodized aluminum with a non-stick surface. It's thicker, and so it distributes the heat better. Because a lot of stoves, the heat is right in the middle, so you get a hot spot. And titanium conducts heat very well and doesn't really spread it out. Like cast iron is the best at that, right? A cast iron pan will heat very evenly. Well, a thick aluminum anodized pan like this is going to heat more evenly than any titanium, really thin, lightweight thing that you have. It's very easy to burn food with titanium. So if you're like a gourmet chef and you want something to, fry an egg in that you can just boom, flip it, make omelets, fish, whatever it is, an aluminum pan like this can be really useful. I often bring this for the first night when we're at camp at the trailhead and we make omelets or fried eggs and avocado or whatever, and it's kind of nice. But I've only taken it on a couple trips because it is so heavy. So in terms of other pots, this is sort of the first pot I had. This is a MSR kettle. It's called it's called their Titan Titanium kettle, and it's about 850 milliliters, I think. The things I like about it are that the top is very secure on the kettle. and people love this. It's very popular. It's good for one person. The downside is, talk about that windscreen in a second. The downside is it's not the lightest thing now. There are lighter things. So it is titanium, but it's 4.5 ounces. And for one person, you don't really need 850 milliliters. It's a little bit big. So you could get a smaller thing that would be lighter and would be just fine. This is the latest pot I've got, and I got it because it's a little bit bigger actually than the last one, because I want to use it for when I take, me and my wife, or just two people camping trips. And this is exactly the same weight as the Titan kettle, but it's a good bit larger, so you could actually cook for two, or boil water for two in this pot. This is made by a company called Toaks, Toaks, and there are a lot of really high quality camping gear. There's a lot of really high quality camping gear coming out of China right now. The titanium is really high quality, super lightweight. I think Toaks is Chinese made stuff. But so this is my latest 2-person cook pot. If I'm going alone, my new alone system is very small, because I know this is a 450 milliliter Snow Peak mug, and I'll show you in a sec what I use it with. But I know exactly what I want. I'll boil this to rehydrate food. I'll put it in whatever I'm rehydrating it in, and then if I want to boil it again for a cup of tea, I can. But it's sort of the perfect amount of hot water. So this is what I need for one person. This is for two. And then if I'm taking 3 or more people, a pot, we tend to do big communal dinners, kind of. Like I'll rehydrate, a big pot of meat sauce, and we'll simmer and cook pasta there. So that takes about 10 minutes, right? So that's where the simmering stove, the stove that simmers well, is really good. Because you're not going to burn it to the bottom. It's going to actually simmer nicely. So you can cook the pasta, and the great thing about rehydrating the sauce is you can cook the pasta in the pot with just enough water to cover it, and then you can just add the sauce, and the water in the pot rehydrates the sauce, and usually you have to add a little more water. So there's no like straining the pasta and dumping pasta-y water in the wilderness. The less you can dump people food into the wilderness, the better for the animals, and also for attracting animals at night. So this is the pot I use. This is a wonderful pot. It's actually aluminum. There's not a huge difference in weight between titanium and aluminum. Aluminum is going to be heavier, and titanium is going to be lighter, but there's not a huge difference. This is a great pot. This pot is it's the 1.8 liter Moore's Camp Pot. And I got it at a website called fourdog.com, Fourdog.com. And they sell stoves and different things like that. But this is a wonderful pot. It's also called a billy pot. It usually has a bail. That's what this is called at the top. And this one has handles here and a spout. And it's, from their website it says, this style of bush pot has been used by Mors Kachansky. Mors received a bush pot like this one while working at the Canadian Air Force Survival School. He used it to replace, sorry about the helicopter. He used it to replace his coffee can that he had been using, and he's had the same pot ever since. This is a great pot. I've cooked for up to 6 people in this pot. The bail is awesome. If you need to fill it with water, you just scoop it and you carry it like this. It's great. For pouring, it's excellent because you have these handles here. You can sort of two-handed pour. I've had so many pots in my day that are big and wide. Let me show you one of those. Another company that's really good is Evernew. Evernew makes really good titanium stuff, and this is one of their pots. It's really lightweight, really great. One of the things I don't like about a bigger pot like this that's wide, God, the helicopters are relentless today. Are you serious? To live and die in LA, right? The thing about a big pot like this with a wide thing is it's kind of flexible, right? And if this is the only handle, it's easy to spill it. It doesn't get supported on the sides. It can sometimes flex, and especially when the pots are as thin as they can be to make it as lightweight, having this bail handle is awesome. And I also I prefer a deeper pot to these stout pots. So I can highly recommend this pot. It's also not expensive. Because it's aluminum and not titanium, it is super cheap. It has a lid that fits really nicely on it. Really recommend this pot. So this is my new pot for 3 to 6 people. The way I cooked with 6 people with this was I cooked the noodles in it, and then I put the noodles in all people's bowls, and then I rehydrated the spaghetti sauce, the meat sauce with the vegetables, And then by then the noodles were cold, but the sauce, once it was rehydrated, heated up all the noodles again, so it worked great. Okay, so let me go back to my list here. Right, so we talked about freezer bag cooking, we talked about rehydrating, so it really depends on what you're going to be doing. A good way, I mean, like these canisters, they come in a bigger size than this too. This is the smaller size. I could easily get by on a trip, 4-day trip by myself with just one of these. I just did a 5-day trip with 3 of us, and we used a bigger canister exactly. That was exactly how much we used. The bummer about the canisters is you often end up with like a little bit left, and it's a weight that you're carrying, and like you're not going to take just a little bit on your next trip, because then you have to lug the whole canister. So let's talk about, okay, next thing, there's a lot to talk about here, so I'm trying to get it streamlined. The next thing to talk about is a windscreen. I've done some testing and I've done a lot of reading. The biggest factor in terms of efficiency of your stove is blocking the wind. And up in these mountains, there's usually wind, especially at night. Right around sunset, there's usually a gust of wind that comes through. It can often be totally still at night, but often there's wind up there. So there are different kinds of windscreens you can buy, but I found one of the best windscreens is this material. So I work in the film industry as well, and this is called black wrap, and it's used around lights to control where the light goes and doesn't go. It's got sort of a matte black finish to it, so the light doesn't get through. And the professional name for it, or not the professional name, but the brand name of it is Cinefoil by a company called Roscoe. And you can buy a roll of 25 feet of about this width for like $25. Kind of expensive. You can also try a company here in Los Angeles called Expendables Recycler. And if you call them, they may have little odds and ends of this that they can send you for real cheap. So the idea is you want to camp somewhere where you're out of the wind. If you can find a windbreak, do it. If it's a rock, if it's going a little bit further downhill or something, always try to camp in a windbreak. That's really going to help you out. And then secondly, always use a windscreen. Always use a windscreen. I mean, the difference in efficiency of the stove is like twice. It's crazy how the efficiency goes down. So what I usually do is I'll set up my stove like this, and then the windscreen goes around it. Now, there's 2 things to think about. If you have a really tight windscreen around a big pot, what can happen is, this has never happened to me, but if you have a big wide pot, even wider than this, what happens is the heat from the stove hits the pot and gets reflected back down onto the canister. So the canister has the fuel right here. If you were to superheat this canister, it would explode. Just like if you threw it in a fire, you would have a big explosion. So with a windscreen, a safe rule of thumb is if you can get your finger around the windscreen and then you close it about 3/4 of the way, you're going to be fine. But if you ever want to test, just reach your hand in while it's burning and put your finger on the canister. If it's too hot to touch, you should back off your windscreen a little bit and get some more air in there. But the windscreen does 2 things. The wind that blows, it keeps the wind from taking the heat away from the pot and from messing with the efficiency of the actual flame. So what I usually do is I face this control knob out the windscreen somewhere like this. And I usually have the windscreen come at least halfway up the pot. And it seems to provide a really great blocking. And then, of course, you do it so if the wind's blowing this way, you would shift it. You want the wind to be here and not blowing into the space. But I usually leave a space about that big. The other thing I've added to my windscreens as of late are little flaps. So what I find is when it's really windy, the windscreen itself will be getting blown around. So with these little flaps, I can just put rocks on either side right there to lock it down, and it's not going anywhere. So windscreen is very important. I have a roll of black wrap. I cut the windscreen and I have it folded either once or sometimes twice, so 3 layers, and then I'll just roll it up and it goes in the pot, and that's how I store it. And then I'll put some other things in the pot too while it's in my pack. But the windscreen is of utmost importance. So we've talked about windscreen. Let's see what else we got here. Freezer bag cooking, we talked about that. Windscreen, yep. Black wrap, Expendables Recycler, yep. All the pots. Okay, so in pots, there are so many places you can get pots. You can look at REI. The heaviest pots are going to be stainless steel. Then you're going to have aluminum, then titanium. I recommend titanium because it's the absolute lightest thing you can get. The metal is also basically doesn't leach any chemicals. You know it's not going to leach any chemicals, and it's very stable. So titanium is great, and that's what I'd recommend for a pot. The other thing I'd say is the same website, 4dog.com, that sells this pot. He also makes custom lids for other pots. So like this little tiny pot here, you always want to have a lid on what you're cooking. That's like the second way to keep it warm. Besides a windscreen for the efficiency of the stove, you really want to have a lid on things, you know, and when you're rehydrating something, a lid is essential. So he makes custom titanium lids for different pots. So this is a mug that doesn't come with a lid, but he makes this lid. So when I'm cooking with this and using it as a pot, I can put that little lid on it, and it's a perfect fit. Other lids, there's a lot of other things you could use for lids. Like this is a dog or cat food lid container, so you could use that. Now, if you you might melt it because it is plastic, but let's say you were rehydrating food in here, you could put the boiling water in and then just put the lid on like that. But the lid is going to be a huge factor in how fast stuff cools down. Okay, so I'm gonna do a stove demonstration, but I'll do that in a little bit. The other thing to think about is if you can never put food in this pot, then you will never have to clean this pot. Cleaning a pot after mac and cheese has been in it or something is annoying. I'm not gonna lie, it's totally annoying. And it's really not good to just take the pot down to the river and like swish it around and just chuck your old mac and cheese in the river. That's not practicing low impact, leave no trace camping. So often what I'll do is, like, if let's say there's like mac and cheese around the side of the pot, I'll just put tea water in there, boil it up, and I've got cheesy tea. Again, that would sound disgusting if you're at home, but up there it really doesn't matter. Same goes with if you have a bowl or something, and let's say the bowl's dirty. You could put a little water in there, swish it around with your finger, whatever, and just drink it. It's just what you just had for dinner. And then your pot's mostly clean. You can wipe it out, and you're totally fine. So if you can if you can just rehydrate meals, that's great. You never have to clean your pot. It's pretty awesome. But I find that, especially for larger groups of people, I end up cooking in the pot. So just if you do have to do your dishes, try to get as much out and eat it as you can, so you're not spraying it in the wilderness. If you have to put a little bit of water in there, it also sometimes helps if you've got stuff that's stuck on. Put some sand in there, get it all around, move it around, and then just take it somewhere into the woods or far away from a stream or where you're camping and just spray it. Give it a good spray, spread it out over a big distance. But the less we can do, the better. And I don't bring any soap in the wilderness. People are like, oh, you can bring Dr. Bronner's. It's biodegradable. Yeah, well, they say a lot of things are biodegradable, and I see them everywhere. So, they say toilet paper is biodegradable, but you walk around and you see that animals have dug up when people haven't dug an appropriately deep hole. So the less we can do with that, the better. So I don't bring soap as well either. Some people will say, I love my soap, and it's fine, but the wilderness is not meant to smell like peppermint. Okay, so in terms of what I eat out of when I'm up there, there's a number of options. People make all kinds of things. At REI, you'll see definitely tons of bowls, right? This is from Sea to Summit. This is their cup, and they make a bigger bowl as well, and it collapses real nice. The one drawback about a plastic thing like this is it's not very durable. On the last trip, my wife was cutting cheese, and she just sliced right through it, so no, it was no longer watertight. It's not always the lightest solution. Let's see how heavy this is. It's pretty light. It's about 2 ounces, but that's not quite big enough to hold a full dinner, I don't think. A full dinner I think of as like 550 to 600 milliliters, and that goes for the pots too. So if you're cooking for one, I would recommend a pot 550 to 600 milliliters. This is my pot for two. It's 1,100, anywhere from 10 to 1,300 for two people, depending on what you're cooking. And like I said, this is a 1.8 liter, so 1,800 milliliters, and I can easily cook for 3, 4, 5, almost 6, even 6 people with this pot. So in terms of bowls, we got stuff like this. Another popular, super lightweight option is just a Tupperware, a Ziploc Tupperware with a lid. The lid is great for 2 reasons. One, if you're rehydrating food in there, you've got a cozy or something. The lid will keep it warm, but also it's pretty leak proof. So another great way to do your dishes in something like this is put some hot water in there, put the lid on, shake it up, and then it's mostly clean. A lot of people just drink it because, again, it's just what you just had for dinner plus water, so it's not a big deal. But some people are like, it's gross, whatever. So like I said, again, even if you put sand in there, it would be like a dishwasher. You just do this, take it far away from camp, spray it. So this is extremely lightweight and costs almost nothing. This is 1.4 ounces, and with the cozy, it's 2 ounces. So this is a great solution. The thing I don't like about this is it's plastic. So you pour boiling water into a lot of plastics, and people will argue and say that this doesn't happen, or it does happen, but the bottom line is we don't know what leaches out of most plastics when you put boiling water in them. So, you know, that's one thing to think about. Everything's, you know, BPA free now because of that. So pouring boiling water into plastic is not, I don't know. You know, again, we just don't know if it's bad or it's good, but it's something to think about. Another thing about plastic is it's going to fall apart, and you're not going to have it for long. And so that's where I move on to metal. So this is a titanium bowl. I was speaking before about Chinese companies that have started making a lot of this stuff. This is called Keith, like the name, Keith Titanium. And they're like copying a lot of Snow Peak products. Snow Peak is a Japanese company that makes it makes the stove I just showed you. Also makes mugs like this. It makes, where's my other mug? It made this mug. They have a lot of great titanium products. And this company, Keith, is now making what look to be amazing quality titanium products. I bought this on eBay, and because they're Chinese, it comes from China, ships directly from China. So the good thing about a titanium bowl like this is it weighs the same. It's less than 2 ounces, so it weighs the same as this. But you could have this for 20 years, right? You take care of this, it's going to be with you forever. It's titanium, so you know it's not going to be leaching chemicals. It's super lightweight, and it's durable. And whenever I'm given the choice of something like this, I'm going to buy the thing that lasts, and I don't have to keep buying and buying. We live in a society, I mean, I don't want to harp on this, but we live in a society where people just throw stuff away and get a new one. Again, the pile of iPhones many places, I'm sure, in the world is a good example. So I'm a big fan of metal and titanium and stuff that you're going to be able to use for a long, long time. So this Keith bowl, I just got a couple of these to replace this stuff. Weighs the same, and it's going to be there forever. A couple things to think about bowls and cups. For myself, if I'm going solo, I got this Snow Peak mug. This is a 450 milliliter double-walled mug. So if I'm going by myself, theoretically I could put my dehydrated food in here, put my boiling water in here, put the lid on, let it rehydrate for 10 minutes, and then just eat out of there. This may be the only thing I need to bring. Now, the only problem with that plan is that 450 milliliters is not quite big enough for a full meal. So Snow Peak used to make a 600 milliliter version of this and an 860 milliliter version of this, and they're not making it right now, but Keith is. So this is Keith's version of the double-walled mug, and this is 600 milliliters. So I just got this, so I haven't used it yet. But it has a great lid on it, which can open to allow you to drink, and can close, again, if you're rehydrating something. So I plan the next time I go solo to just take this along with this. And I'll boil my water in here, I'll rehydrate my food in here, boom, and then if I want a cup of tea, I can use either of these for that. So a big mug like this can be very versatile. And it's not too deep to eat out of. You can easily eat out of it. It's a great sort of multifunction piece of gear. Now, double wall versus single wall. Let's talk about that real quick. Titanium is very, very thin. The heat goes right through it. So this single wall bowl, if I pour boiling water in here, it's burning, scalding my hand. I cannot hold it. And the good thing about something like a cozy like this is you can hold it while you're eating if it's really hot. Now, if it's that hot, I'm not putting it in my mouth. My wife seems to be impervious to heat, but I'm not that way. So a single wall thing, you're going to burn yourself, and you can make a cozy, some kind of cozy for this as well, or you can get a double-walled container, and that just means like if it's boiling inside, it'll be lightly warm to the touch. Now the payoff, or the drawback, is that it's going to weigh almost twice as much because you have 2 layers of the same thickness. So it weighs a little bit more. So this Keith mug that's 600 milliliters is heavy. It's 6.4 ounces. Now I could get the same thing done with 2 ounces, right? And this is, again, like in the lightweight philosophy, you go as light as you can. You make the big 4 that I talked about earlier, sleeping bag, your tent, those big items, make them as light as you possibly can, because then you can afford, sorry, that must have been really loud, because then you can afford to make decisions like this and say, well, I don't want to eat out plastic, and I'm just going to throw this away. I want something I'm going to have for 20 years, so I'm going to bring this, and it's 4 ounces heavier, but you've saved, a pound and a half in your sleeping bag, so it's not really that big of a deal. So I think I'm going to really like this Keith mug, but again, I haven't used it yet. The other cool thing is Keith also makes smaller mugs, and let's say you're going with 2 people, or you wanted to eat and drink at the same time. They stack really nicely. This is the Snow Peak version, but the Keith version is the same size. So you could stack them for carrying. The other thing you can do is you can get creative, right? This is the lid that comes with the Snow Peak mug, and it has holes cut out in it. There's no way to close it, so I can't really put the lid on and shake it to do my dishes. So, I poked around REI, and they have a double-walled like coffee cup that has a silicone lid like this that actually fits on this one, and I like this lid quite a bit better. So the cool thing is you can mix and match lids often. Like a cup that fits in your hand as a human hand is usually about the same size. So you might be able to find another lid for your cup or whatever. And like I said, this dog food lid would also work. Stuff like that. This lid probably, yep. So there's a lot of things you can do. Now, titanium is a little bit expensive, so if you can't afford the like $40 or whatever it is for this mug, this is also a good alternative. Again, it's plastic, but it's a mug. It has a tab that closes, so you could do your dishes in it, and it's about 550 milliliters. So this is sort of the progression. You can spend $3 or $5 or something on this. You can spend, maybe this is $12, $15 at REI. It's GSI, and it's an insulated mug. Plastic, got a cozy, so you could rehydrate food in here. I have a friend that's about to go on the JMT, and she's just going to bring this. This is her only container to eat out of. So you've got plastic options, you've got cheap options, and you've got titanium options that are a little bit heavier. I would stay away from stainless steel because it's heavy, needlessly heavy. Okay. On to the next thing. We talked about titanium, we talked about windscreens. Right. This is a spoon. The spoon is made of Lexan plastic, which is the same thing that this is made out of. Nalgene makes these out of. The spoon cost me $1.95. $1.95. This is the only eating utensil I have ever needed. If you have a little like knife and fork and spoon that are all stainless steel, throw them out. You don't need them. The spoon is the only thing you'll need. And then a knife, maybe, that I'll talk about later. I've never needed a fork. The only other thing I have wanted is if I were to bring noodles, like you can get not like top ramen, but higher up. There's if you want to Google search, you can find way better ramen options. Just see a guy now that seems to be making a living of just reviewing ramen, like instant ramen noodles. You think he's like over 1,000 different kinds of ramen. Anyway, let's say you wanted to bring ramen noodles, or you liked your Asian foods. Chopsticks are also great to bring. So if you were to make ramen noodles in here, you dehydrate some pork or some chicken, put it in, dehydrate some veggies, put them in, you've got a whole meal right there. Eat it with chopsticks, slurp it up just like you would if you were in Japan. You wouldn't even need a spoon. So, and actually they make, this company Keith makes titanium chopsticks as well. But this spoon is just a Lexan spoon. It's made in, maybe it's Xylon, I don't know what it is. It's plastic. It's made in, you can get it at REI for $2. This is what I'd recommend. You can get titanium spoons, you can get long-handled spoons. This is great, and it's $2, super cheap. Last thing to backtrack a little bit, I also got a Keith Titanium double-walled bowl to try out, and my jury's out on it because it does, the single-walled bowl, if you have really hot food in it, it does burn your hand, but the double-walled bowl weighs almost twice as much. So while this weighs 2 ounces, this weighs like 4.5 or something like that. But it doesn't burn your hands, and it is pretty good. And if you had a lid for it, you could also rehydrate food in here. If you find a lid that's the right size for this, you could easily rehydrate food in this as well. So there's a plethora of options in terms of cooking. And like I said, each person will have a different system and a different way it's worked out. And if you go online or on the forums or something, you'll be able to get a million opinions on what you should bring to cook in, how you should cook, all that stuff. Let me just check. So now I'm gonna do just a stove demonstration. I'll show you a canister stove versus an alcohol stove, and I'll talk a little bit about this little guy as well. Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences in the stoves. Like I said, this is a canister stove. This is probably the most widespread and the easiest thing to deal with. You just buy a stove on top, and you get the canisters, you throw them out when you're done. This is a Snow Peak Gigapower stove. This probably cost me like, I don't know, maybe $60 10 years ago. and I think they're in the $50–$60 range. So, like I said, mentioned with things coming out of China, and they're able to manufacture things very cheaply. There's new stuff coming in the market all the time. So this is one of the things I want to show you. This stove weighs 3 times as much as this stove. This is a new stove from China. It's titanium. It's currently the smallest canister stove on the market, and it costs less than $20. You can get it on eBay, and they'll ship it to you from China. It has a built-in pot holder just like the other one. And so I'll thread this one on here. You'll see, you'll hear a little gas come out as I turn it, as it makes the seal. And so this one costs $60. This one costs $15, and it's just amazing. It's a pretty amazing little stove. I'll light it up for you. So it's got a single flame in the middle. Goes pretty high. And amazingly, this $15 stove, what is it called? BRS, I think it's like the 9000. It simmers excellently. You can go way down to just almost nothing. You probably can't even see that on the camera, but it's simmering right now. So really, really amazing that for $15 you can get a stove, for a canister stove. So I'm going to give this to my friend for her John Muir trail trip because it's so light. So the one drawback is that it's probably not as durable. This one's made from titanium and brass. This one's made from light sort of aluminum, so the threads in there, if you were to cross thread them, it may not be as durable. But like I said, it weighs about a quarter what this stove weighs. It weighs less than an ounce. So for less than an ounce and $15, that means it's just incredible. It's really a great deal. So these are canister stoves. I'll put a link to which one this is because it doesn't say on it. I think it's the 9000T or something. But the one drawback about this is, like I said, it may not last. It may not be as durable. But also if you look at the size of the burners, this one has 3. This one has not the burners, the pot holders. This one has 3. This one has 4, and these ones are noticeably flimsier. So for solo, it's perfect. It's a very small area, but if you have a small pot like this, even like this, no problem. If you wanted to have a bigger, heavier pot with a lot of water on it, it may not work as well. I bet it would work. You just have to be more careful with it. While I picked up this pot, I want to mention one other thing. When I looked at this pot, I really like this style handle. I really do, because it goes out further, and a lot of times you have heat coming up from here, and the handle will stay cooler than this style handle. You see a lot of pots with this style handle, and they get hot. They get very hot, depending on what stove you're using, obviously. So I like this style handle. I looked for that when I got a pot, and if you need a larger pot, I recommend it. It's not quite as light, but the difference is very small. Okay, these are canister stoves. There's 2 other things I'd like to talk about. One is solid fuel. Solid fuel includes wood, but we're not going to talk about wood. It also includes this. What is this? These are solid fuel tablets. I think they were developed by the military. It's called SBIT, and they come in little tiny squares like this. Looks almost like styrofoam, but it's hard. It'll break apart. It also smells sort of like fish, which is weird, but whatever. It burns with very little. Doesn't make a lot of smoke, that kind of stuff. So SBIT tablets come in, and they often come in little packets like this, in like blister packs, and each one is individually sealed. And what you do with SBIT is you burn it and put your pot over it, right? So you can get a tiny little SBIT burner stove. Oh, I'm getting some actual sun on me. Is that messing with it? Oh, reflection from the window. Anyway, whatever. You get a little SBIT burner stove. This is titanium. And this stove, this weighs nothing. And I think the company SBIT, ESBIT, makes this as well. So this weighs half an ounce. And what you do is you put the SBIT cube right in there. You light it. I'm not going to light it, it's still in the plastic, but it's there. And then you put your pot on the top. And it's very close to your pot. And it just burns until it burns out. So in terms of lightweight, if you're going absolutely the lightest you can, solid fuel Esprit stoves are the lightest solution available, especially if you're going for a short time, so you're not carrying all that fuel. And people have done, made charts where they compare over how many days you have to go to make it worth it, and the weight and everything. But Esprit is one of the absolute lightest things. And you can test at home and see, okay, I need half of a tablet to boil a cup of water for me. So this will last for, this will make my oatmeal and my cup of tea in the morning or whatever. And you can do that calculation and bring exactly as much as you need. Whereas with a canister, like I said, you often come home with A, the weight of the canister, and B, some extra fuel inside that you didn't need. So solid fuel is a great way to get around that. I'm just going to pause and see if this light is making a difference in the camera. Hold on a second. Okay, sorry about that. The direct sun wasn't working. So that's Esprit, solid fuel, and there's other kinds of solid fuel tablets you can use. And like I said, you have a little burner like this, and people sell and make different ones. You can make them out of just pieces of aluminum, and you put the fuel tablet there, you light it, and then of course you make sure to have a windscreen around it, because actually solid fuel will just blow out if the wind hits it right. So you'd have a windscreen around it like this, and you'd have your pot just sitting on top of it, like so. So that's solid fuel. And just one more thing about the windscreens. Heavy-duty aluminum foil that you can get in any grocery store will work. You just double it up, same exact thing. And if you were to buy this black wrap stuff, it comes in a roll like this. This is labeled Cinefoil, and it just comes in a roll. Okay, so that's solid fuel, Esprit. The other kind of stove that's very popular with a lot of people and a lot of backpackers is alcohol stove. And they come in all different shapes and sizes, and here are a couple. And the idea is you just put alcohol in there, and it can be, not moonshine, but what's the really high proof, like you can even do it with distilled spirits like that you would drink. Super high proof alcohol burns really cleanly. Denatured alcohol also works. And it comes like in a tin like this that you get from the hardware store. And it's very cheap and plain now, Jesus. It's very cheap, and like with Esprit, you can bring exactly as much as you need, right? So alcohol stoves are like this, and what you do is you take some alcohol and you pour it in, and you light it, and you leave it. I'm going to put it on here so in case it gets hot, it doesn't melt my table. But we'll give a little pop, and the alcohol will just burn off until it's done. So there's a lot of alcohol stoves that are built to also be a pot, support. So you can just put your pot in there, and the flame will come out the side of the alcohol stove and work. So that leads me to talking about this alcohol stove system that I have. There's a website called traildesigns.com, and they have made an ingenious thing called the Caldera cone, which is this. And what it is it is a windscreen and pot support together. So what you have is, this one's made of aluminum, but they also make them out of titanium. And what it is, it's a windscreen. So you have your alcohol stove there on the ground, and then you can put this over it, and then they're made for the individual pots. So the size of the rim is exactly made for an individual pot. So in this case, it's made for this mug. And what it does is it supports the rim of the mug right here under the metal. And so what you have is a windscreen, a pot support, and the other great thing it does is it funnels the heat right onto the pot. So it's very efficient. It's, with a windscreen you have heat escaping up the sides. This, it funnels all the heat right onto the pot itself. So it's a really cool design. Their titanium ones are a little more durable, but you can get them for any size pot. I'm thinking about getting one for this pot. And so what you do is you pour your alcohol into the stove, you light it, you put the cone over it, and then you put your pot on top. Really, really ingenious design. And he's designed this stove. This stove actually comes with the cone. It comes in a set with the cone, a bottle for alcohol, a little measuring cup for your alcohol, the stove, and a little caddy to carry everything in. He also has versions, some of the titanium versions come in 2 pieces, so you can take them apart and actually stow them in the pot itself, so it all just closes up in one enclosed thing. This one comes with the caddy, so it makes it a little bit heavier for the caddy, but you know, that's neither here nor there. So you put the alcohol inside, you light it, and you can, you test it at home and you can see how much alcohol you need to boil whatever pot of water you happen to want to boil or cook with. The downside to solid fuels, they don't simmer. They have one setting, and that's on. If it's burning, it's burning. If it's not burning, it's not burning. And there's some alcohol stoves that claim to be able to have simmer rings. I haven't really tried that out, but you can take the power of an alcohol stove down sometimes, depending on the design. And people make them out of everything. Like this one, I can tell is made from a Coke can and inside a Red Bull can. And it weighs almost nothing. It's aluminum. This stove I like a little bit better. This is also by Tokes, which is the same company that did the pot and a couple of other things I have. I like it a little better because it's titanium. If I step on this stove, it's gone. It's smushed. It's dead, just like an aluminum can. But this one is much more robust, and it's not expensive. So I like this a lot. So anyway, that's the Caldera cone and the alcohol system. Denatured alcohol. Let's see. What did I forget? Right, so like I said, the positives of alcohol and solid fuel is that you can bring just as much as you need. The negatives are they don't simmer very well, so if you want to cook fish or fry an egg or boil slowly something, it's not really the best solution for that. But it works really well if you're just dehydrating food, because you know exactly how much you need. You've got your alcohol bottle, you put as much as you need in, you put this on, you put the cup on, you got your pot, you got your lid, you just leave it. And when the alcohol burns out, it's done, it's ready, it's hot. Take it off, you pour the water into whatever you're rehydrating the food in, and it's great. So that's some systems. Again, you can read endless opinions about all this stuff online, and everyone's, like I said, everyone's got their own opinion of what's the best cooking solution, what's the lightest weight cooking solution. It all just depends on you. But you will have to do a little bit of research. If you don't want to think about it, I would say get a canister stove. Order this one on eBay for $15, and you can get canisters anywhere and use that. And then just make sure to make a windscreen, or I think REI might sell aluminum windscreens, stuff like that. But you can see the caddy just fits everything right in there and screws on. This is the Caldera cone from Trail Designs, and like I said, they come in all different kinds. They also even come in a titanium version that can do. The cone also will work with espit, so it can do espit, it can do alcohol. It comes with this little stove, and also it can do wood burning. So if you're in a place where you can do wood burning, you can do it right in the cone, and that creates the windscreen, and it's super efficient. So check them out, Caldera cone, really good. The only other thing I bring, so like I said, I usually bring with me 2 of these lighters. One I'll have in the cook kit. So usually what I do is I have the stove and the lighter, and I'll wrap it up in a bandana and put it in here and put it inside the pot and nestle everything together. But I usually have one little bic with that, and then one in my sort of emergency bag. But the other thing I bring is just a flint and steel, and it just makes a spark. And this is super reliable. This will make, I don't know, thousands of fires. So if for whatever reason you lose the Bics or something else is happening, I mean, this weighs almost nothing, and I always have a flint and steel with me. It's just good emergency fire-making gear. So I think that's about it. I'm going to talk a little bit about knives now. A lot of people ask me what kind of knife they need or need to bring on a backpacking trip, and I think we'll be done with this segment.